Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast. I'm Travis. I'm joined by my co-host, Courtney Williams, and a special guest you're going to hear a lot more about today, Kristin Allender. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello there.
So if you missed the previous episode, Courtney announced she's stepping down as podcast host and from her time at America's Kids Belong. So we will mourn that one more time on this podcast. But this is her grand finale, and it wouldn't be right to not have her included on the episode that's celebrating the 100th episode of this podcast, going 2+ years.
Crazy.
Great, you guys.
So we're excited to have some final thoughts and insights on this episode from Courtney, who also we hope to have a future on as a future guest. So, but our newest guest today, who's never been on the podcast before, and this is exciting, is Kristin Allender, who has been with America's Kids Belong since 2016. She's been when did you start as the Tennessee executive director for Tennessee Kids Belong? What year?
Started that January of 2016, but I was wearing dual hats at the time, working for America's Kids Belong as well.
Okay. So since 2016, executive director of Tennessee Kids Belong, where Kristin has done some amazing work leading that state, who's a state affiliate now and one of the flagship state for America's Kids Belong. She's helped pioneer the Foster Friendly app, which we talk about, Foster Friendly communities. Kristin was all over the leading edge of that. So she's got so much experience, and she's going to tell us more about some of that. Before we hear more from Kristin and kind of herself, her family, Kristin, tell us, do you have any stories or anything that kind of gives us, the listeners, a little bit of a window of your time at America's Kids Belong?
I mean, it's been a wild 10 years. I have stories for days. Gosh. Any given day, we were traveling around the country, meeting with governors, sitting in child welfare rooms, discussing the entire ecosystem of foster care, down to helping states learn about the I Belong project and setting up video shoots. And I can think of one time in Oklahoma, actually, where a woman or a young girl, she was nonverbal and she took off. We were filming at a group home and ran into the middle of a giant pond and the water fountain. And she was wearing all white for some reason. And she started doing this and all the alarms are going off and we're walking down and they have to get a therapy dog to bring her out. And I'm trying to teach them about interviewing kids and mid-interview, I'm like, can we stop? She's still got a leech in her hair. It's been a crazy 10 years, but
Wild.
so exciting. Some of the best of my career.
That's a great picture that we can visualize. Oh, and before anything else, I do have to say, I don't think I said this. Kristin is also stepping in as the new podcast host for Courtney. I don't know how I didn't say that at the beginning, but so that's another little news break here.
Huge
Yeah.
shoes to fill. My goodness.
Yeah. Well, before we dive into more about you, Kristin, guys, it's the end of the summer already, which is crazy. Share a favorite highlight of yours over the summer. Travis, go first.
Okay, so I just got back from North Dakota. Courtney and I talk about this. It's both of our home states, so we have that in common. But for me, it was really special because for a variety of reasons, seeing a lot of family. But I actually did a podcast with my grandparents who are 97 and 96, have been married almost 80 years. They have stories of talking about riding or going to town and seeing Native Americans riding bareback on horse. They had some marriage advice, and Grandpa told us about how he was attracted to Grandma down the hallway in high school. I mean, come on now. So,
Wow. That's special.
Yeah.
Wow. Summer highlights. I was fortunate enough to take a very exciting trip with my family, which I'll tell you more about as we go. But there is something so beautiful about doing an adventure together in a space or place where none of you have been, and the lessons you learn as a family, traveling with teen girls who have a lot of strong opinions, uh, but just learning things together and watching them having to navigate something brand new in a space we've never been in, and that joy that comes from adventure and experiencing somewhere new. So that trip this summer was very significant for our family, and I love watching the kids learn new things in a new space.
Very
Great.
cool.
Yeah, and for me, we just got back from 10 days camping. We've never taken our camper like on a long trip before, but we drove over 2,000 miles, went up to Glacier National Park and Teton National Park, and it was just epic. It was so fun. We've been to Glacier multiple times, but it was fun taking the kids back. We haven't been there for years, and the Tetons are just they're mind-boggling, like how vast and amazing they are. So it was a great trip.
Awesome.
Send me your itinerary offline.
We did run out of gas once. That was the negative, but thankfully we were on an off ramp, and my husband only had to walk like I don't know 3/4 of a mile. So yeah, it happens when you
I saw
haul a camper.
payphones on the side of the road somewhere over the summer, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, who I forgot that was a thing when you had we had to walk through payphone because cell phones weren't a thing."
Wow. Like, just on display? I mean, they weren't usable, I wouldn't think, or maybe?
I don't know. It was still there on the side of the road. Drove by it
That's
too fast to
amazing.
get a picture, but I was shocked.
That's super
Kids had no
cool.
idea what it was. Of course.
Should be in a museum.
Right.
Awesome. Well, as Travis alluded to, Kristen being the new host, the new face, we want to get to know you a little bit. So tell our listeners more about you and your family, what you're most excited about with your new role as the CEO of AKB, all the stuff. Let us get to know you a little bit.
Well, I am an adoptee. I was actually adopted at birth and have a wild story of the uncovering of all the things, bio family over the years. It's an onion. You're just unpeeling as you go. But we'll say that for another podcast. I went on to become a social worker in college, and what's wild is I didn't even know the term social worker. We were very open about adoption, talked about adoption all the time, but I had never heard that term before. And so my first week of college, one of my orientation leaders was asking us about our majors, and we were talking about family, and I said something about being adopted. And she said, "So you're going to be a social work major?" And I was like, "What's that?" And she said, "Oh, you said you're adopted, so it'd be cool for you to, match birth moms with adoptive families." And I was like, "That's a job?" I didn't. So I went back to my dorm room and I, scrambled through the registration catalog, and I was like, "I'm going to do this." So I marched into the registrar's office the next day and I said, "Hi, I'm here to change my major." And they said, "Why don't you give college more than a week, sweetie?" And I was like, "Well, never been more sure of anything. You won't see me again." And they did not. I went on to become a social worker, but that played out very differently than I anticipated initially. Our careers always do, right? So I went on to do child abuse investigations in Los Angeles County for several years and wound up on a task force that did all of the drug raids and child trafficking investigations and wore bulletproof vests to work many days. It was just very different than I pictured. I loved it. I loved sitting in the space and being able to build rapport with a child who had experienced significant trauma or was very scared because there were police in their home and their parents were being taken away, um, and establish that trust and get them to say the things that they needed to say to me so that I could move them to a safe place and get them on a path to healing. So I did that for quite a while. Eventually did the private adoptions at a law firm that I thought, I'd wanted to do, which was great. Um, a lot of wonderful things, a lot of tender moments with birth moms in hospital rooms. And when I came to Tennessee 12, 13 years ago, I heard about this group called America's Kids Belong that was trying to really bring together all sectors, the government, the church, businesses, the creatives around foster care. And I said, "Sign me up," and had no idea what I was in for. Uh, so that was, a little over 10 years ago now. And my family, I'm married. I have two girls, they're 14 and 15. and they have been very involved throughout the last 10 years. And I'm able to share what I do with them. My kids, when they were little, they would write the sweetest things about their mom's job. And they're like, I don't know, dad goes to work. But mom helps kids and families. And uh, so, yeah, we live in Franklin, Tennessee. And yeah, that's a little about me.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll just share. It just excites me that you're taking over as host as I leave, because you have just a different viewpoint, a different vantage point than I have. But also, I feel like you have the podcast personality. I don't have the podcast personality. I've got like stories and experiences, but you got like
Oh,
the podcast personality. So I'm super excited for you to, yeah, for our listeners to get to know
Wow.
you more and,
Thank you.
and your fun personality. So, Travis, what excites you about Kristen?
well, don't undersell your. You were laugh. We got you. Yeah, we got you laugh. No, you've been awesome. I feel like we might have a dip in listenership till everyone gets
Absolutely.
used to your absence, but no, you've been awesome to be on this podcast. We really appreciate you. I'm excited I think you said it well, Courtney, of just, Kristen does bring a really unique perspective, both, I love how you open it as an adoptee and unpacking and uncovering like in her own story, birth family and kind of the onions, like you said, and kind of from that perspective, then being, a social worker investigating, some of the, tragic things, but also, the inspiring nature of that work as well. So that hat, and then to be a leader, on the front lines of Tennessee Kids Belong and the amazing work you guys have done there, continue to do there, and then to also now CEO of America's Kids Belong and taking your experience to a national level, but then bringing this all also onto a podcast where yeah, she definitely has the personality. I've told her that a while ago, so
Yeah.
it'd be fun.
Well, I got stories for days. I'll tell you all the
Well,
things. I
that's
could have seen a lot and learned a lot the hard way and done a lot of things that we do differently, but some really, really cool ways that community has been involved. I mean, the name of this podcast alone, like what an honor to be
yeah,
hosting it,
yep,
co-hosting it now. Foster
yeah,
Friendly is so dear to me, and watching the creative and unique and exciting ways that companies and faith communities and individuals have gotten involved. I mean, we could hit them years of content for
Mm.
yeah,
just the stories alone.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun new chapter. So, well, speaking of that, let's just kind of get into a little celebration of this episode. Also, is we are celebrating our 100th episode. I believe this is now 2 years plus since we launched this thing. Um, if I want you guys to think of if you could think of a well-known song title that would serve as the anthem for the first 100 episodes. Do either of you guys have a song title that comes to mind?
Courtney, you
And
go.
why?
Mine would be Stand By Me. I feel like kind
Nice.
of what Kristen was just saying, being a foster parent and going through for many years now, having the different people that have come alongside and stood by us as foster parents. And that's what the foster friendly app, the foster friendly communities, it's all about coming alongside these families. And I feel like throughout the different episodes, when you look through the guests we've had, whether it's business leaders or community people, faith leaders, foster parents, it's like this whole community aspect of standing alongside these kiddos and the families who are caring for them. So that would be mine, and I'm
Good
singing
one.
it in my head.
What's yours, Travis?
I'm gonna go. I was torn. One of them was "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees. Is that who though? We're just trying to stay alive in this dog eat dog world of podcasts. But also, I think I would say "Welcome to the Jungle," and I'm gonna go with Guns N' Roses on that one because I feel like, the podcast world is a bit of a jungle of like sorting through, finding, who do you like and who to follow. There's so much there, but also just the world of foster care in a way. And when I think of a jungle, I think of, there's sort of like this mystery, like, there's so many different things and parts. And, kind of, so we're kind of welcoming you into the space to help shed light on places that a lot of us don't know about and meet some of who's involved in this thing. And so, yeah. You got anything, Kristen, on this?
It's a good one. I think mine is probably a little along the lines of Courtney's, and I was thinking about the Beatles, the iconic "Little Help from My Friends."
Ah, that's a
It really
great
like
one.
taking a community, and I think this podcast is a place where we just bring in our friends in this space and get to talk through the authentic, real stories, right, that make foster care so beautiful and difficult all in one.
Yeah.
Great one.
Hmm.
So as you guys think back, I think Travis, I mean, you said it, you guys should be really proud. I mean, this podcast has brought on all sorts of incredible guests, and you guys and Brian have led it so well. What podcast, as you think about the 100, are you most proud of? Which episodes?
What do you got?
What about the podcast in general do you feel really proud of?
Yeah, selfishly, I know I've said this before, but my episode I got to do with my kids. All three of these, my three favorite episodes would be the one I did with my kiddos, and then two older ladies, Pam Bauer, who talked about the grief and adoption, and Judy Wright in her book Just Hold Me. I think all three of those episodes spoke to me as a foster parent who's tired and a little weary, and you know, I don't need to get to know foster care type things. They're fun to do, but that's not what the season that I'm in. But they spoke to me and helped encourage me in the season that I'm in fostering after many years. And I just love the older perspective of women who are older than me and wiser than me. So hearing from them those were my favorite episodes.
Those good ones. I mean, so I think you asked a couple questions too of like, what are you most proud of? What did you say what you're most proud of, Court?
That's hard to answer. I can't like narrow it down to something I'm most proud of. But I just think the time and energy put in this space to make a podcast. I mean, that may sound silly, but there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that I don't know people really recognize or know that goes on. And it has been a heart filled production. I mean, something we've put a lot of time and energy into, and I'm proud that I got to be part of it.
Well, I would say, first of all, episode wise, 100th episode. I mean, man, it's just, I really enjoyed the host ones, the chemistry, and it's been fun to be on together. The three of us and Brian's here. But as far as an episode, I mean, you already said Judy Wright. I was going to say that one, the recent one that we had. I'm going to go back to, I think last year when it was, an extremely powerful one of Ashley and Ashton. So Ashley was bio mom, and her son who was placed into foster care were on together in an episode describing their vantage points of him going into care, what that was like, her being on the other side of getting help. And then kind of a back-to-back episode with Selena, who was the foster mom. So it was this like picture of foster care from all different angles, and it was tear jerking, beautiful. But also I was struck by in the one with Selena, who again was the foster mom with the biological mom together, Ashley, in this one. And I'll never forget when Selena shared that it was her husband who was actually the kind of motivator for Ashley to turn her life around. So a message for guys too, of where, it's like, well, where's my place? And, sometimes we feel like, I just don't know if I have what it takes. I mean, here was, the foster moms or foster dad who encouraged the birth mom of her own life, and that's what got her going. So I'll
Mm.
never forget that. And like you said, I guess I would just say like this thing didn't exist, and now it exists, and it is only built on teamwork and us just figuring it out together with our friends, like Kristen said, like just friends at AKB, and man, I'm just so proud of it. So
Yeah. As you both should be. And I think the range of guests you've had on there, I mean, Travis, yes, exactly. It's like all perspectives, bringing in people who didn't think they even had a role in foster care. Now here they were, um, really, really well done.
yeah, thank you.
Should
Yeah,
be proud.
it's been, yeah,
Yeah.
really excited to see where it keeps going. So, well, speaking of looking at well done and kind of where things were, Courtney, I'm really curious. You're the only one, as far as the hosts are, who's continued to foster during, at least the 2 years of the show. Um, how are some ways just as a foster parent, kind of you've been touched by this podcast?
Yeah, I think hearing different perspectives has been great for me. And like I said, we've been fostering for 20 years, but we don't know it all. We don't have all the answers. And sometimes I'll go through a training and it's like, oh, I need that. Right. And then having a guest on who says something that I kind of forgot about or something that I need to be reminded of over and over and over again. So it has definitely encouraged me to keep going, to take a break when I need to take a break, to find the community, and even silly ways of, like, we'll have somebody come like, we had the person that come on from Binti, right? That might not be the most, like, heartwarming episode we have, but what they're doing for foster care, and if maybe we'll just share that episode with our head of foster care and say, "Hey, have you ever considered this?" I think it just gives us tools too to talk to other people, to make change, systemic changes within foster care when you hear what some state or county or organization is doing that we should have nationwide or could be nationwide. So just give me a lot of tools and opportunities to share it with other people as well.
Awesome. And I love your humble approach. If like Griffin Day was 20 years, then yeah, there's
Yeah.
always going to be more to learn or more to be reminded of.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. 100%.
For
Yeah.
sure. Well, 100 episodes in, as we've mentioned, we've talked to foster parents, former foster youth, social workers, foster friendly businesses, faith leaders, bio children of foster parents. We've discussed all these core issues. What's one issue that you feel more hopeful about and a systemic barrier that feels more solvable to you today than maybe when we first started this episode or this podcast 2 years ago? So, what's something that you feel like, hey, there's some hope and some change here?
Kristen's got to go last on this one, I feel like, because you got the high level of the whole thing. You found that way beyond just the podcast. Um, Courtney, what do you got for yours? I'm curious because
I think it's interesting, and I still would love to see. I know we have a old teammate working on. At the very end of every podcast, we've been asking, "What is one thing? What do foster kids need most?" Right, and that people answer. And somebody was compiling all these answers, and I looked through those a while back, and it's crazy how when you look through those answers, almost all of them are different, but yet they're all rooted in the same thing. They're all rooted in child centered, child focused, and I still feel like that is one thing we get wrong a lot, and if we could make one change and hearing the voices of all these different people saying the same thing, but yet in a different way, that we need to focus on the kids and what kids needs need to come first. Um, their permanency needs to come first, their feelings, their thoughts, their voice, all of that needs to come first, and I hope that this podcast continues to shed a light on that because it needs to be. I I don't think there's a caseworker, a social worker in this space who's doing it out of ill will, but I do feel like even myself, like after a while, my husband and I were just talking about this. We got a little guy in our care right now. He's the cutest little 2-year-old, right? Easy to love, but also like we're tired. And sometimes you
yeah,
just kind of forget about what these kids need or what needs to come first. We need to remind ourselves of that. But I think caseworkers, everybody in the system, the equation needs to remind themselves of that constantly.
Courtney, that's so good. Can I just add on? I have on my computer screen up top it says kids are the priority. Because when you're especially people working in nonprofit space or, that are on the more back end side of it, it's like the donors, the spreadsheets, the budgets, the stress, like all of this stuff that can come first. And it's like, oh wait, hold on. Let me make sure that everything we do, the motivation, any, decisions that need to be made, the kids are the priority and that they're what comes first. And so it's it needs to be there and it needs to always be our focus and how we talk about the work, how we approach the work, how we approach our time with the work. So yeah,
yeah,
thank you for calling that out.
yeah. It's really good. I would say, and then I really am excited to hear Kristen's like setting you up for just
Like, what a da-da.
um I used to do it with Courtney a lot too, so I just feel like I mean it though, but I would say I think there used to be a saying way back. Well, when I say way back, I don't know. I'm just gonna take a stab. Came on at 20. I think I was on the team in 2017. Um, I think you'd hear this a lot in churches. You'd see it in social media. The whole thing of like if 1 in 3 churches had just one family that would was it foster or adopt? I one of the two. I don't know. there be no waiting children, or there be foster care numbers would be cut down to, you know, and I think, well, things like that are great mantras of like how solvable in a way this can be. I think that the shift, and I know Brian Mavis has said this, but pushes against that, where it's like what we don't want to see are all these churches, and in this case we're talking faith communities where, unsupported families are sort of like, well, I'll be the one that steps, and the church hasn't created a culture to support them. And then it's just like, okay, well, you're probably not going to last because the attrition is so high, and foster families that aren't supported. And Courtney, you've done such an excellent job in your own life and story to continue to say how much support you need when everyone looks at you as the legend. And you're like, yeah, but it wouldn't be, well, first you would say, no, I'm not. But secondly, I'm only able to still do this, me and Bobby, because of, our community. So I'm really excited about, I think, this idea that, I mean, no, it's about support for the families. And oh my gosh, I'm bringing this full circle to Kristen. Kristen one time had a quote, and it's always stuck with me of like, you said one time, we're something like, we're irresponsible to be recruiting families who aren't supported. And I was like, you nailed it. So that thing of really supporting families better with foster friendly communities and all that. Anyway, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fully feel that way, and I say that a lot, and it's weird that it can be controversial, and I think, Travis, what you said, is controversial in some spaces, like, "No, it's if every church stepped up," and I completely agree. It's like, but actually, if a few stepped up and it became part of their culture so that all those families were supported, that completely changes things, right?
Yep.
So, yes, it's irresponsible of us to just go recruit families without simultaneously recruiting that support for them or helping them build that community around them. Okay, what do I feel hopeful about, that feels more solvable today than it did 2 years ago? I would say I everyone talks about the line, "Everybody can do something," right? And it's been an AKB mantra for forever, and I truly believe that to my core. And I don't know if historically everyone has felt like they know what that something is, or that there have been clear on-ramps to that something, right? Unless it's gonna be foster care adoption, they're like, "I don't know, money, and I think that there is a movement happening and around building foster-friendly communities as a whole. Obviously, that's our work, but there are so many organizations that are saying, "We wanna activate these communities and really give everyone a role to play that's clear and on-ramps to do that." So whether that's wrapping around the foster family directly, whether that's getting your business involved, we meet quilters who are making quilts for kids. I mean, it's like all of these people of all walks of life finding their something. And I think the more awareness that happens and the more on-ramps that are offered that are clear and kind of make that light bulb go off of like, oh, I didn't think that my vocation had anything to do with foster care. I have a meeting this week with the owner of a car dealership, and it's one of my favorite stories. But well, maybe I'll just tell it. Maybe I'll just tell it right now.
Let's do it.
So, he, we were seeing the need. A foster family is needing a bigger car to take in sibling groups, right? And my background, investigations. I remember middle of the night driving with groups of siblings, just gripping my steering wheel, praying that I'm going to find a place to keep them all together, because the last thing I want to do is see them separated. I witnessed what occurred when they had to be removed from the home, and they're terrified. And so keeping siblings together feels extremely important to me. And foster parents' transportation became an issue if they didn't have a big enough van, and they needed to take them to the doctor the next day, and they couldn't fit all the kids in their car because they had bio kids at home too. And so it was our goal to get a business or a car dealership to become foster friendly. And we got excited. We were all trying, our team in Tennessee. And I found myself at a dinner with the owner of a Nissan dealership. Okay. And I'm like, I'm going in. I'm going in. He thinks I'm going to ask him for money. And while we need money, pause, AKB needs to be supported. Consider donating below at
Yeah.
Marvelous. Well, we need money. There was another way for him to be involved. So I went in with my pitch, and I was so excited. And, told him all of that and said, if you could give a discount to foster parents who are buying a bigger car so that they can take in more kids or sibling groups, that would be amazing. And he looked at me and he was like, that's easy. What else? When else is transportation a barrier for foster families? And it really just took me back. And I think back to foster friendly as a whole, like that was a pivotal moment because I realized he knows way more about his business than I do. I'm not in the car industry. He said, I said, some of these families need like a 12 passenger van, but they're not going to go buy that because they're not going to need it forever, but they might need it for a week or two, for an emergency placement. And he said, we have a rental fleet of 12 passenger vans. Anytime a foster parent needs it, they can have it for free for a month. I mean, I would have had no idea that existed, right? So foster families flooded that Nissan dealership. They were working with him. They were buying bigger cars. They were using those rental vans. They bought the entire rental fleet out. The foster parents did. And eventually Nissan stopped making those 12 passenger vans. And so literally his team to this day, that was years ago, is still outsourcing and finding vans across the country for families and then delivering them to these foster parents in Tennessee. And he says, I used to sit in church all the time. And it's no knock on foster care. I have my own causes that I'm passionate about. We're not going to become foster parents. So I'd kind of glaze over like, oh, it's foster care and adoption Sunday.
Yep.
I had no idea that I, as a car guy, played a role in this. And I looked at him and I said, you as a car guy have kept siblings together, brothers and sisters, on the scariest day of their little lives. We're in the same home because you as a car guy had a vision and made it happen. And he's like, did that, and now that dealership has inspired other dealerships and we're working, the ripple effect. And who knows how many brothers and sisters in other states have been able to stay together because other dealerships have caught on to this and done the same thing. We'll never know. And isn't that the beauty of it?
Yeah. It's inspiring.
Dang. Yeah. That gave me chills.
Shout out to Nissan of Cool Springs.
The car guy. And I have the Nissan 12 passenger van. It's the best van. I wish I still made it. I'm kind of bummed, but yeah. But yeah.
That's an amazing story.
That is.
It's
It's like how many other car guys and how many other industries can we tap into where they help solve these small barriers that mean all the world to the kids and these families. And it's so simple for their company, Gets me so excited.
Yeah. Well, people just don't know.
Yeah. And I think what's so striking in that story to me is you're able to also tell, not just from a general standpoint of, you help the family transfer. I mean, you said this helped these kids stay together. Do you realize the work? I mean, when people hear that, it's like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Wow. So.
Travis, I got a question for you.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Just thinking, being the 100th episode, my last episode, Kristin coming on as co-host. Where's the podcast going? What's coming up? What can our listeners get excited about?
Okay, well, I'm glad you asked. So and I'm gonna say this. I have to shout out Courtney. A final time in even that question is that we said this in the previous episode, but or 99, whatever that. I don't know. Was it the 99th episode we talked about? Was your episode, right? But so much of this podcast too, Courtney's fingerprints are all over, thematically, and obviously a lot of the guests, and then writing a lot of the questions and stuff like that for interviews. But you helped kind of set up some of even the remaining schedule for the year. And so while that may pivot on some of them or whatever, what we do know is the Aging Out series is coming up soon, and that's really going to feature potentially 4 episodes of former foster youth who have aged out, telling some of their stories, what they've went through, some of the barriers, some of all of that, and then kind of the incredible things that they're doing with their lives as a result. And so I think it's going to be powerful, not just from an inspiring standpoint of look at where they've come, but I think they're also going to speak to prospective foster parents and current foster parents on advice and tips and hey, I know you might face this with your kids, but hang in there because this is what I really meant when I was acting out, or some of that kind of stuff. So that's one of the things I think we've taken a lot of pride in this podcast, is we've really elevated the voices of former foster youth with their experience on the front lines and living the system out they have a lot to tell us and teach us. And so, yeah, we've really honored that and that. So that, and then we'll have following that, Adoption Awareness Month, featuring, stories from that as well. So I'm really excited to talk to Kristin more about some of her ideas on that, as well for that. So, yeah.
I love it. I've really enjoyed the series that we've done when we've done some, related podcast episodes in a row. I feel like it gives kind of a bigger picture of something that we can go deep on. So I'm excited for you guys to do that.
Yeah. Well, since it's your final one, do you have any
100.
more questions, or you just want to throw anything out there? Or?
That was it for me.
All right. Well, do you have any final words as you send us all off?
No, I just want to say thanks to our listeners. I mean, to make it to 100 episodes is, yeah, it's encouraging. It's uplifting. The whole K-Love, what's it? Positive, encouraging. My kids say it all the time. It's like a little joke in our family, the K-Love little slogan. But I do thank our listeners for inviting us in. Whether you're listening as you cook dinner or in your long car rides, transporting kids back and forth, your walks that you get alone, whatever it might be. Thanks for inviting us in for 100 episodes. Whether you're a new listener, longtime listener, I just encourage you to keep listening. The show will go on, and super excited about where it's going. Yes, it's my last episode, but I hope that, again, that people continue to listen. And I believe that if you're listening, you do believe that every child deserves a voice, deserves to be loved, to be seen. And that's what we are bringing forth at this podcast. So keep listening, and you guys keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Courtney. Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Well, great closing words. Thanks.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired by what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure a family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.